I want to welcome you to the Ask Jeff YouTube channel. And I kind of got some bad news / good news. We actually do not have a question of the day today. Due to some technical issues or travel concerns, we're not actually going to address a specific question today, but here's what we are going to do. We're going to show you a clip from Wednesday night's regular Ask Jeff sessions. And we would encourage you to be a part of our Wednesday night. See, on the daily YouTube channel, we address questions maybe 90 seconds, 2 or 3 minutes. But on Wednesday night, we're able to dig into your questions, go 10, 15, 20 minutes, follow-up questions. We're able to dialogue with each other. So let me encourage you, Wednesday night, 6:30 Central Standard Time, tune into Ask Jeff, the weekly edition. Wherever you are, you can be a part of it live. You can submit your question and be a part of the discussion. If you're not able to join us live, we always archive the material. Every Wednesday night, 6:30, Ask Jeff Weekly. Today's YouTube question is actually going to take you to Wednesday night, and you're going to see what you can be a part of every single week.
Next question says, if being a Christian is loving thy neighbor, why are most Christians transphobic and homophobic and make fun of something a person can't help how they feel inside? First off, I want to identify transphobic and homophobic. By definitions, those words mean they are scared of those that are trans and or homosexual. You do realize that most Christians are not scared of them. That's actually a poor word choice, okay? To say that one is homophobic means you have a fear of homosexual people. I haven't met a whole lot of people that have a fear of, okay? Maybe a disdain for, a dislike, a disagreement with. So it's really a bad word that we use, but our culture uses it anyway. So basically, when these words are being used, basically what the culture is saying is, why do Christians speak so contrary about these individuals? And then secondly, per the question, but they can't help how they, quote, feel inside. Well, we kind of addressed that with the previous question on fact versus feeling, okay? In fact, kind of the 3 F's in life that will guide you in life is faith, fact, and feeling, okay? In other words, what are the facts? How does that affect our faith, and how do we feel about it? You do realize there are things that are factual that I don't feel good about, okay? Hey, 2 + 2 is 4 whether you feel it or not. I mean, it is, right? And our feelings oftentimes are contrary to the facts. We become a culture today, though, that says that your feelings necessitate facts. But again, go back to the previous questions. If a deceased, unnamed human being passes away and there's no identification, they always label them as male or female, irrespectively of how they, quote unquote, felt. Now, per this, how can we or how should we respond? I want you to turn to Matthew chapter 19 again. Hopefully you still have it there. And I want to address this issue of sexual deviation. When I mean sexual deviation, any type of sexuality that is contrary to the biblical means and methodology, okay? In verse 12 of chapter 19, Jesus, remember, he's been talking about marriage, divorce, etc. On the backside of this, he is going to talk about a specific word, a specific identification that is very prevalent in the world, kind of unique to our culture. It says in verse 12, it says, for there are some eunuchs which are so born from their mother's womb. There are some eunuchs which were made eunuchs of men. And there are eunuchs which have made themselves eunuchs for the kingdom of heaven's sake. He that is able to receive it, let him receive it. Now, I think this verse is very critical to this question. A eunuch, by our definition, is somebody who is unable to procreate and have children, right? What's interesting is that Jesus Christ actually gives us 2 definitions. You say, what do you mean 2 definitions? It says that some men, there's actually 3 descriptions here, but notice description 2 and 3. Some men have been made eunuchs by other men, correct? We have examples of that like in the book of Daniel. Remember the book of Daniel? You had these, I guess, for lack of better terms, the brightest and the sharpest of the Jewish people who the king wanted to be trained up in the Babylonian way. And remember that when Daniel is debating with him about what they're going to eat and drink, remember he was the head eunuch. He was over, they had unicized them, for lack of better terms, so that they could not bear children because they were going to be among the royalty. There are ways, both graphically, physically, as well as medicinally in today's culture, where we can take somebody and make it so that they cannot procreate. We can do that. But notice the third one. Some men have made themselves eunuchs. Now, there could be a graphic explanation of that, but can we go to a more prevalent one? There are some individuals, it says for the kingdom of heaven's sake, who, because of their love for the Lord and because of their desire to serve unashamedly, have made the decision not to have a family. Doesn't mean they can't. It just means that they're not going to. They've made themselves eunuch. So here's what Jesus has said, that there's actually two definitions for a eunuch, one who can't and one who won't. There's a distinct definition that Jesus is giving. Now go back up to the first clause. Some men from their mother's womb. Now you say, how does that address this question? Because there are some men that come into this world and physically, for a lot of different reasons, are unable to procreate. It's just part of physical life. It happens. But you know what Jesus is also opening the door to? There are some men who come into this world without the desire to. By the way, let me go to the end of the Bible. In the book of Revelation, chapter 14, there's this talk about the famous 144,000. You know, those individuals that are spoken of so highly from the 12 tribes. You know what the Bible speaks of them? It says that they are men, and the Bible uses the words, and they are virgins. They have set themselves aside for the service of the Lord. You know what they've done? Exactly what Jesus said. They are eunuchs for the kingdom of heaven's sake. You say, why is that important to this question? Because there are individuals that, according to Jesus' words, come into this world without a desire for a family by natural means. But what does our culture do? Our culture, from the very moment they step on planet Earth, begins to question who they want to have a relationship with. And by the time they hit middle school and there's some type of function, they say, I'm going to speak from a male perspective, what young lady do you want to take? And what does the young man say? That's just not who I am. So what does our culture say? Then you must like guys. Do you see how that works? We've began, if you want to call it out what it is, it's indoctrination is what it is. Because even, I'm going to go ahead and say this, even within the Christian world, I don't think we realize the importance of this verse. That there are some people in this world that God has so wired that they're to serve the Lord and not, shall we say, be of a lifestyle contrary to Scripture. Now, let me pull back from that for just a moment. I want you to think about this. Do you realize that a good portion and majority of people who could be identified as those who people claim us Christians are contrary to are some of the smartest, brightest, intelligent, created, gifted people on planet Earth? Is that not who the enemy wants to take away from the Lord? I want to give you some examples. Can you imagine, just imagine for the sake of illustration, if Elton John was a worship leader, Freddie Mercury, Lady Gaga, some of the most talented people in the world are living these lifestyles. Why? Do you think the devil wants them praising the Lord? Do you think the devil wants them serving the Lord? Of course not. So you go back and read their biographies, and earlier in their life, what happened? They started getting turned. They started getting twisted. Jesus said, hey, there are some people that can't, and there's some people that don't. And there are those that come from their mother's womb. Why is that important? When it says about loving thy neighbor, if what I've just shared with you from Matthew 19:12 is true, okay? And by the way, I believe it is. Then when somebody claims that they are of this lifestyle that is contrary to Scripture, they have no desire for those of the opposite sex, then you know what that really means? That means that God has not made them as second-class citizens. He has made them for even a greater purpose than you and I. Their purpose for the kingdom of heaven's sake. Their purpose is to serve the Lord with the highest of aspirations. Is that not who the enemy would go after? I cannot tell you how many times I've had conversations with parents, moms, dads, grandparents, heartbroken over their children that have fallen into this lifestyle that's mentioned here. You know what I typically do? I say, time out. I say, can I talk to you about your son for a moment? They say, sure, you've never met him. I say, let me guess. Highly intelligent, creative, artistic, brilliant, and great to be around. They're like, how did you know? because the enemy goes after the best. Isn't that what the king of Babylon did? Who did he set aside and make eunuchs? The best. You do realize that Nebuchadnezzar is a type of the Antichrist. Kill the Jews and twist everybody else for his purpose. Create an image that when the music starts, you bow down to. We call him a type of the Antichrist. What did he do to the best? He euthanized. He didn't euthanize them. He made them eunuchs. So again, I think we see the same thing. So for a Christian to be a loving neighbor, I think what we've got to do biblically per Matthew 19 is rather than saying, oh, you're deep in sin and you're a second-class citizen, I think we need to say you've fallen into sin because you've listened to the wrong voice. God has set you aside for a very special purpose and you've listened to the wrong voice. That's a whole different approach to this issue. And you know what? It is hard to claim that we're, quote, phobic when we express the Lord's desire for a better life than the one we see them observing.
Thanks for being a part of today's daily question. Now, we answer a question each and every day. Please feel free to submit a new question at AskJeff.net. We may not have gotten to yours today, but we eventually will continue to be a part of this. Subscribe so you don't miss out on a question every day.